How do you find some of this great talent that you've brought in, who are still early in their career, might not have a ton of tape on them yet?
I've been around this business, man, for almost 20 years. So a lot of these guys will tell you that I popped into a lot of gyms, sparred or just worked on the side or, kind of worked out, just watching. I've always loved this sport, man. I think it's the greatest. And we want to continue to put on the next up-and-coming superstars. We know we got them.
Only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
I remember one time, I don't know if Kenny will remember this, I said put 100 on, I think I left it on a text. Put 100 on this horse that won, and then Kenny called me back later and goes, "Hey, I never got the text." And I'm like,
no.
Oh yeah. Remember that, Kenny?
I would never stiff anybody. He texted me as they're loading into the gate, maybe, like it's too late.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
It's a new era in CFB to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of the week to week to week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoffs.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards. That was thinking! But he had that program was already going there!
Only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back into the early line. I'm Dubs Anderson alongside Joe Ranieri, and you're watching along right here with us on the SportsGrid Network. Happy Tuesday. It's a special Tuesday. It's holiday week. One more sleep before Santa comes down that chimney to absolutely stuff my stocking full of nice gifts, Joe. I don't even want to know what you've got me, but it's not just the gifts that are coming down from big old Santa Claus. We're getting set for some great action coming up tomorrow, so this is our chance to check in with the public. A little Fade the Public. What could we have on deck? Time to take a look. All right, Joe, real simple one. We hit the old socials and ask the public, ask you guys, the bettors, the viewers here of the SportsGrid Network, which league are you more excited to watch on Christmas Day? There's two options here. The NBA, the association, 5 games on tap for your Wednesday afternoon, or the NFL with a couple of heavyweights squaring off. Just 2 games out there on the gridiron. But, Joe, this seems like a no-brainer. Don't overthink this one. And look at this. In commanding fashion, the public have spoken, 91% pointing towards the NFL, and rightfully so. So I ask you, Joe Ranieri, which league are you more excited to watch on Christmas Day?
Ugh, this is brutal. Yes, the NFL is king, and we all know that. But I'm all about the league that's going to give us, I don't know, the most competitive games there, Dubs. I think it's interesting, the couple of games that they are giving us on Christmas in the NFL. But when it comes to, especially you on the West Coast there, Dubs, you're going to be looking forward to watching the Golden State Warriors and take on the Lakers, or round 2 of the beatdown that Denver gave the Phoenix Suns last night. So, there is some star power in the NBA. Early on Christmas, it's going to be all about the NFL. Late on Christmas, it's all going to be about the NBA, I think there, Dubs.
Yeah, we're seeing it the same. It's going to be NFL first preference. I'll throw reruns of the PNC Championship from last weekend.
Yes.
Shout out to my guy Charlie Woods getting a slam dunk in front of Dad Tiger Woods. And then I'll dabble with a little NBA. But for me, Joe, it's tough to get excited about the association right now. All of these teams are absolutely blowing them off the court. It's either you win by 40 or it's a rock fight. And to live and die by that 3-ball, it's just made it a bit of a snooze fest. Hate to be that guy. It is what it is. You're going up against a very busy season of the National Football League right now. There's an absolute bevy of storylines. There's a bevy of markets that can be jumping into play. And I just feel like the volatility that we're seeing with the NBA night in, night out, it's a little tough for me to get charged up about. But I'll certainly be watching. I'll be watching the Lakers going against Steph and the Golden State Warriors. We'll be watching the Denver Nuggets squaring off against KD and the Suns. But for the NBA, they got to figure it out. They've got to figure things out, Joe. Obviously, the numbers don't bode well. It looks like they are losing a bit of viewership. So I ask you one more. What does it take to get the NBA moving back into the right direction? Or is it more of just sitting back, biding your time, let's get through football season, and then voila, we're all back into the NBA?
Well, you know, again, you got to have less of what we got last night with the Knicks in Toronto. I can't have a 140-120 game. I mean, more points doesn't mean more excitement here. Sorry. I think the NBA needs to take a page and go back and pull some of the ridiculous fouling out of the game. Stop with the whistles. Bring back hand checking and bring back an ability where teams aren't going to roll over every chance that they get and an entire roster filled with nothing but people who chuck up threes. I mean, that's not basketball. There's nothing fun about watching that. And the public knows it. That's why the public will never choose the NBA over anything. Quite honestly, Dubs, even if we put college football in there or even college basketball in that poll, the NBA is still going to finish behind both of those. I would much rather watch college basketball than watch the NBA. Any day of the week, I'd much rather watch college hoops. More authentic, and it's not just all robotic and just, oh, look at that, chucking up a three, another three, another three. There's actual coaching going on, too.
Yeah, try and show us a bit of intensity there, boys. Get that physicality going back in the paint. For me, Joe, I'd like to have a couple of submissions here to the old suggestions box. I think for Christmas Day, we'll see plenty of specials amongst these big sports books just for Wednesday specifically. So you can have a bit of fun and chase those big plus money peaches, if you will. But I'd like to see the association have no 3-ball. The 3-pointer is not a thing for Christmas Day specials. It doesn't count. It's 2 points. You can go from in the paint. You can go from beyond the halfway mark. It's 2 points regardless. And in the NFL, I'd like to see every player that scores a touchdown outside the quarterback, they come out of the game. They have to be replaced. You lose one of your chess pieces every time you get a tutty. So suddenly you've got to be a bit more tactical on that side of things as well. And maybe that's just because I'm a little sour, Joe, that I got bounced out of my fantasy football playoffs a couple of weeks ago. So I'm a little sour on that side as well. But what do you think, Joe? Are these a couple that we could throw in the suggestion box to make Wednesday afternoon, Christmas Day, a little spicier?
How about this, Dubs? How about on this Christmas Day, we have to watch all 5 NBA games, and every time somebody makes a 3, we have to drink. Sounds like a good drinking game. What do you think? Every time. What are the chances we'll make it out of the first game? What do you think?
All I say is, Wemby, give us another 6 from last night, and that's going to be a great start to Wednesday against the Knicks.
Exactly. Yep, exactly. Sounds like a good drinking game opportunity here. Just every time somebody makes a 3, just drink. Sounds like it's a fantastic day at Christmas.
It really does. And, shout out to all of you guys joining us here for your Tuesday on the SportsGrid Network. But it's an exciting time of year. You can catch up with family and friends, but it's also a little punishing, Joe. I mean, you're seeing, the cousins, the uncles, the aunts who you haven't seen in months. You've got no interest. You've got no care on what them and the kids have been up to from since you last seen them. But we go through the same small talk, the same chit chat. I'm absolutely there, just firing at will. I've got the box score. We're refreshing at the dinner table, at the lunch table. Bad etiquette doesn't exist on Christmas Day. It has to be done.
Correct. I agree. And I am very much looking forward to seeing my favorite blackjack dealer that I haven't seen in about 48 hours on Christmas. So I'm looking forward to that as well, because we all know casinos never sleep, Dubs, which is why we love them. So I'm looking very forward to seeing them as well.
Joe, on the handicapping side of things, Chiefs go against the Steelers in Pittsburgh. The Ravens go against the Houston Texans over there at NRG. Is that something that you put a bit more weight into your handicapping, knowing that the teams at home are going to have, a significant advantage, just being a little closer to family and friends? Because at the end of the day, yes, they're professional athletes, but they're also like you and me. We're also very similar to being professional athletes, but it can be a very distracting week here around holiday season.
It always is. And for the Chiefs, I believe Chiefs in Pittsburgh, right? I mean, these are 3 games in 10 days, Tubbs, that they have played now. This will be the 3rd one. I mean, the scheduling has been absolutely brutal here. And, keep that in mind, too, as we get ready for these games. They really did stick it to Kansas City and Pittsburgh there from a scheduling standpoint. But I don't think that's going to be an excuse. I do think Pickens is going to be a big, big reason as to why Pittsburgh either wins that game or loses the game. And as far as Baltimore goes, I don't see any money coming in on Houston early. It feels like Baltimore looking to shut the door on that AFC North division crown. They want it and expect a big effort out of them.
Keeping in line with B's, Beyonce live performance at the halftime break for the Ravens taking on the Texans. And star quarterback Lamar Jackson, he is going to be there absolutely ringside in a while. It's time for a quick commercial. We'll meet you back here on the other side for more action on the early line.
The holidays come with a touch of craziness, from unwrapping the latest storylines to the best betting insights. We've got everything you need to crank up the excitement this season. We can't promise there won't be a little yelling.
Play a decent schedule. They have maybe 500.
It just ruined my day.
But we can guarantee a whole lot of fun. Merry Christmas from all of us at SportsGrid.
I mean, this is week 16, and you're throwing this guy in the fire. I know the Giants suck, Scotty, but you got that backdrop. Just give it to Bijan 50 times if Penix isn't looking too well.
And I also think Penn State has an easy track. And I think, to be honest with you, Indiana, people are all going to say they should have never been there. And listen, I just wanted to say one last time before that happens that you can all kiss my ass.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
And you're not riding with Josh Allen.
Yeah.
Where have you gone? Don't tell me it's your Philadelphia Eagles, Donnie. Who's the team for you?
You see that Vince Lombardi trophy that sits back here? That's a replica. And that's something that the Philadelphia Eagles have won as recent as 2017. The Buffalo Bills were notorious for making it to the Super Bowl and coming up lame, which they might be able to do. But my question is, can the Buffalo Bills even get to the Super Bowl?
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
On, Donner and Blitzen. Now, Rudolph, now.
Merry Christmas to all!
Welcome back into the early line here on the SportsGrid Network. I'm Dubs Anderson alongside Joe Ranieri. We're talking a little week 17 in the National Football League. Eyes towards the quarterfinals in the college football playoffs and the association getting set for a 5-game slate on Christmas Day. That's coming up tomorrow. But plenty going on in the baseball world. I know it's the off season, but really no days off. And we're now joined by our very own MLB insider, Craig Mish. Craig, happy holidays. Happy Tuesday. I need you to get me up to speed because what I've been reading this morning, this cannot be right. Walker Buehler of my Los Angeles Dodgers, a homegrown hero, wins a World Series, but now on the way to Boston. What do we know about the deal?
Look, at this point, I think it's fair to say that other teams must have had some injury concerns, Dubs, with Walker Buehler to only, hand him that one-year deal. The other thing that I would say is maybe from Buehler's perspective, he's still very young, feeling like if the 4 or 5 year deals like Blake Snell got weren't out there, maybe he felt like he needed to go prove himself again. Now, I know, Dubs, he was fantastic in the postseason, but remember, he's had a lot of injury issues over the last couple of years. So maybe this works out well for both sides. Buehler goes to Boston and does a really good job in that 1 year contract that he ends up getting. And then maybe he goes back on the free agent market again. That would seem to be what is going on here, because otherwise he's the kind of pitcher that absolutely could get a multi-year deal, proving himself as something that he wants to do very clearly. And I think teams want to see him a little bit more healthy. He definitely will be a one-to-watch player, I think, this season.
So, Craig, I wanted to get your thoughts. The minute I heard this, I thought of you with Luzardo heading over to Philadelphia. What is he, 27, I think? He's still was under, I believe, control and will be for the Phillies, who add Zach Wheeler now, Aaron Nola, Ranger Suarez, now Luzardo. I like it for the Phillies, but what was this situation here with the Marlins, and what did they get back in return for?
Yeah, well, Joe, look, at this point, we know where the Marlins are headed. It's probably more of a rebuild type season. Luzardo's under team control for 2 more years. Will get paid in arbitration, $6 million, $7 million this year. I think, Joe, most people who watch Luzardo think that there's a very high ceiling for him, meaning if you look at his season 2 years ago, where he started 30 games and he pitched for the Marlins in their first postseason game, that's the kind of guy that he can be. And I think the Phillies are hoping for that. But there's no guarantee of that. This is a pitcher that's had a lot of injury issues also over the last few years and did not have a good year last year when he was healthy. So my guess is what the Marlins are doing right now is not necessarily, I don't think, selling low, but sort of taking a preemptive measure here with some worry, maybe, that if he doesn't have a good season or if he's hurt again, they would get nothing for him. I don't think that this is a case of something is better than nothing. They really do like one of the players, Kaba, the infielder that they got back in return, far away from the major leagues. So a little bit surprising, I think, but with Luzardo's injury history, I think Phillies are in an all-in mode, and they felt like the player that they gave up, especially in this deal, is blocked by other players in the organization as well.
Craig, let's talk New York. The Mets continue to spend. Big left-hander there, Sean Manaea, gets $75 million for 3 years, puts pen to paper.
Yeah, look, I mean, Manaea just absolutely, Dubs, captivated everybody with his postseason and his late-season performance with the Mets. Did not have this one coming. Did not see Sean Manaea getting this kind of deal over the course of his career, but it just goes to show you the lack of pitching in Major League Baseball, and what Manaea did for the Mets last season earned him another go-round. A little bit rich for me with that 3-year contract, just personally, because I just haven't seen him put 3 years together ever. But good for him to get paid.
McCutcheon's still going at it, huh? And it looks like what? He's going to finish his career as a Pirate. Probably one of the more better-known Pirates that we've had in a while here. What is he, 38, 39 here? But they're bringing him back on a $5 million deal. Probably an easy decision for the Pirates, no?
Yeah, look, I think you said it, Joe. Maybe it's 1 year. Maybe it's another year after this year. He's a homegrown Pirate. There's some debate whether he's a Hall of Famer. I think probably, to me, still fringe, I think. If you look at his numbers, close but not quite. Maybe another couple of years gets him in. Adds some great clubhouse factor to what the Pirates are trying to do. They're going to be under some pressure, Joe, to win this year a little bit more than they have in the past. I don't think they're going to be able to get away with 75 wins or anything like that. You got Paul Skeens, you got young players, you got Reynolds. You got to try and win a little bit, and I think that's where the Pirates are headed. And so he just adds to that mix. Doesn't really move the needle either way, but for his career, it's a really nice story.
And Craig, we're in the business of making money. Never too early to jump in and play the futures. Opening day coming up on the 27th of March, but it really feels like it's fast approaching. So let's take a deep dive into the 2025 World Series odds. And the odds makers projected it to be all about the Dodgers yet again at plus 320. It's been a nice looking off season, but outside of LA, who's the standout for you? We've got the Braves and the Yankees sitting at plus 850, but who's going to benefit from some of the recent acquisitions?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, the Dodgers are stacked. They're bringing back a lot of players. They're still going to be fantastic. But let's just not forget, in terms of talent, the Philadelphia Phillies are still right there. They've been a very disappointing team when they've gotten to the finish line 2 years ago, and then they didn't even get to the finish line last year. So to me, that's the team, if they could put it all together, Dubs, and knock out the Dodgers, then you would be talking about a team that would have some sort of clear path to the World Series. Yankees got there last year, but again, take a look. It's a lot of National League teams you're seeing there in the top five, and the reason why is 4 of those 5 teams, probably the most talented teams in baseball. So to me, it's the Phillies where I would drop in on the value there.
You like what the Yankees did after losing Soto? You like the moves they made, Craig?
I guess. I mean, Soto's a generational player, and I like Paul Goldschmidt and the other names that they're adding, but it's not Juan Soto, man. You know, like I don't think anything. They can put us. They can make some soup for Hanukkah and Christmas and just throw it all together in a pot and hope it comes out tasting like Soto. But I got news for you: it ain't gonna be.
It ain't.
You want Soto?
Craig, before you lose you, Juan Soto, Mets, 15 years, $765 million deal. How many World Series does he get between now and then? Give us the future's outlook.
Maybe one. That's tough to predict. It's like picking the horses, man. You're running.
Back to winners, baby! Appreciate Craig Mish.
On, Donner, and Blitzen. Now, Rudolph, now!
Merry Christmas to all!
How do you find some of this great talent that you've brought in, who are still early in their career, might not have a ton of tape on them yet?
I've been around this business, man, for almost 20 years. So a lot of these guys will tell you that I popped into a lot of gyms, sparred, or just worked on the side, or, kind of worked out, just watching. I've always loved this sport, man. I think it's the greatest. And we want to continue to put on the next up-and-coming superstars. We know we got them.
Only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're gonna go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's gonna help me get the job done. There is not gonna be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Welcome back into the early line. Happy holidays. Appreciate you coming along for the ride here with us on Christmas Eve. I'm Dubs Anderson. That is Joe Ranieri. Joe, on the spot, best gift under $50 to take to Christmas Day lunch tomorrow. What do we buy?
Oh, It's easy. It's a bottle of whiskey pig bourbon. I mean, it's quite honestly, you're making these questions easy here, Dubs. You ought to see what's under my tree right now. Might as well just be a bar at this point. But yes, under $50, outstanding stuff. Can't go wrong.
I bought a plethora of scratch-off tickets from the gas station. That's going to be my season of giving to the people. But I tell you what, Joe, if it's not the bottle of Whiskey Pig bourbon, and geez, that sounds succulent. What about a couple of winning plays? Can we give the people what they're looking for?
Yes.
Wednesday's going to feature 5 games on the NBA slate, and the 76ers going against the Celtics. What a showdown this one looks to be. Philly, they're playing better basketball. The Celtics been very strong at home, 11-4 for the season. Joey Mazzulla getting the boys fired up. There won't be a Jason Tatum out there on the floor, but certainly no shortage of star power for this one, Jar.
Yeah, and this, of course, coming off the heels of Embiid being injected last night for going after an official. And I'm assuming he will not be suspended and be available for that game. Because I do believe there is a rule there, Dubs. If you get, 2 technicals, I believe there is a suspension that's supposed to follow that. But, I'm sure they'll make room and allow him to be able to play in this game here. I don't know what to make of the Sixers. Honestly, I don't. I mean, that was a great win last night. But what are we doing here? We know for a fact that if they are usually, and you mentioned here, Jason Tatum likely out in that game, but is that going to matter if we have a less than 100% Sixers team here? I don't know. I thought the Sixers were playing better heading into that game last night, and mostly because they had been healthy enough there, especially with Embiid, even though he's wearing the mask. Great come from behind win. I just feel all of these games, especially this one on Christmas Day, probably going to get a lot less defense, Dubs, and a lot more offense. It feels like we should just be back in the overs, and especially in a game like this with the Sixers and the Celtics. It's going to rain threes. I don't think anybody's going to go out there and lay it all out on the court. I like the over in the game. I think that's not a bad way to look at it.
Seeing that number hover right around 222.5 there. 76ers over in Boston taking on the Celtics. I feel like it's a lot of points for the 76ers. If Maxey can get back to what we saw there on Monday evening, I think the 76ers are certainly live to keep it close enough. Straight up, well, I got question marks on that side of things. Let's bring it out to the West Coast. West Coast, the Lakers going against the Golden State Warriors. Again, superstar, star power, plus 150. The Lakers outsiders going up to San Francisco in another low total. I believe this one opened at 231.5. So we have seen a bit of movement towards the unders, Joe.
Yeah, and again, Lakers have been playing some defense, have been playing to the unders here, but my goodness here, if as long as everyone for the Warriors who is playing that we think will be playing there, like Gary Payton Jr. and Draymond Green and others, if they are healthy, I got no problem backing and taking the points here with the Golden State Warriors, but I agree with the market move. I think the under is probably the better look.
We really do have some enticing matchups for Christmas Day. The Denver Nuggets and the Suns. This will be the late game for Wednesday evening. The Nuggets are playing some fantastic basketball, led by, surprise, surprise, Nikola Jokic has been in his bag. Minus 146 there, so a bit of juice, but looks to be worth the squeeze with a total sitting at 233.5. For the Phoenix Suns, Joe, they just haven't found a way through the last couple, and it's a team that's really hard to trust. On the betting side of things, you think you're getting one thing, and then they just show up with a dud. So it's a bad spot for them.
Listen, I don't get it. It just the Phoenix Suns have completely fallen off defensively. Devin Booker is not coming back anytime soon with a groin injury. They look as disconnected as possible. I wanted whoever won that game last night to fade him in the next game, but I can't fade Denver because I can't trust Phoenix here. It would be Nuggets for me or pass.
5 games coming up for the Wednesday slate. Happy holidays. We're getting after it with the association betting. Time for a timeout. We'll be back here on the other side. What's the early line?
There's a better chance the Raiders might stumble into a win because of who they're playing over the next few weeks than the Giants, who I don't think will win.
I don't believe for 1 minute that they want to win a game. I do not believe that the New York Football Giants want to win a game at all, because it will cost them dearly. In fact, they will continue to suck for years to come if they screw this up.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circa Sports Million, Circa Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With 2 former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back into the early line. The NBA talk continues as we get set for Monster Wednesday. A Monster Wednesday Christmas card coming up there, Joe. So let's take a look at the early games. Batting leadoff. San Antonio Spurs out in New York taking on the Knicks. Tell you what, the Knicks absolutely masterclass there on Monday night from their dynamic duo. The Spurs, though, Wemby, CP3, they've been playing some really good basketball. 224.5 is the total. Look at this. The odds makers projected to be an absolute landslide over there at MSG.
Yeah, and I agree with it. I think the Knicks will have no problem running over this Spurs team, unfortunately, especially at home on Christmas. I mean, I had made the Knicks somewhere around an 11.5 point favorite. It did look like the total is starting to come down a little bit here. And here's the numbers, Dubs, with what I was talking about. The over on Christmas games going back the last 5 years, 16-9, 64% to the over. A Knicks team total over, maybe. A full game over, maybe. A lot of props to the over. It feels like this is where the Knicks will kick off Christmas with a big show. And they will have no problem bombing away. And let's face it, Wemby can't block all of them. So I do think the Knicks are going to win this game by double digits, but I think the over is probably the better play.
Wemby will do his best to try and block every single player in the facility. Yep. He is that good. He's an absolute monster there. So that's going to be the early game coming up for the Wednesday card. We then move into the Timberwolves going against the Mavericks, and I feel like things just haven't been working out for Minnesota so far through the season. Anthony Edwards has been a little chippy, taking shots at the officials. It feels like that locker room's slightly off right now. And for the Mavericks, they got confidence. Luka returned there on Monday night. He put an absolute monster performance. They're set as 5.5-point favorites at home in what projects to be a low scorer, 221.5.
Listen, the Minnesota Timberwolves are a mess. And the idea that they swapped out Cat for Julius Randle and thought somehow or another he was just going to slide right into this team and make them the same. It's not the case. They're a mess. They're a mess to the point where they don't even like one another. Dubs, watching this team play, Anthony Edwards is getting fined left and right because he's telling us this team hates one another. He doesn't like them. They can't play well together. There is no, there's nobody spacing the floor for the Minnesota Timberwolves right now. You can't play Julius Randle and McDaniels at the same time. All they do is chuck up threes. Everybody knows how to defend Anthony Edwards now because there's nobody else there that can actually shoot or they have to worry about it. And you got the Mavericks team, who's been one of the most consistent teams in the NBA, and they'll have no problem healthy beating this team. I mean, to me, I got no problem backing Dallas here. I know what we're going to get with Doncic back in the lineup. And the inconsistency and just the sheer dysfunction of the Minnesota Timberwolves, no way. I'll take it all day long here with the Dallas Mavericks.
Yeah, we're seeing that one the same. Happy Spritemas to Minnesota and Anthony Edwards. The Mavs 17-11-1 against the spread. On the flip side, you look at Minnesota 11-17, so have not been strong in trying to cover that number. It sits at 5.5. So that is the 5-game slate coming up in the association for Wednesday afternoon. On Christmas Day, does it get any better than that? Well, the answer is yes. We've got 2 games in the NFL. And Joe, this is what's got me primed up. I mean, if the PNC father-son golf tournament didn't move the needle for you last week, get set for a little Netflix special coming up tomorrow afternoon. Chiefs, Steelers, Ravens, Texans, and I think it goes pretty simple in this one. The Steelers are getting the score, grabbing the points, home dogs. I think for Kansas City, Patty Mahomes playing a little banged up. He's always got this ankle injury. But they could be looking towards the postseason. Steelers come in, catch them napping, and the Ravens going against the Texans. Well, Joe, we highlighted some of the wildcard contenders. Baltimore, very, very scary. And you look at Lamar Jackson, what we saw in that presser early there yesterday. My guy's excited. He's excited to be in the building. He's excited to see Beyonce in person for the very first time. And for the Texans, look, they're a little banged up as well. Tank Dell, that's a massive loss for them. So give me the Ravens to cover there, 5.5. Love the look of the Steelers at home and what's going to be a bit of an arm wrestle. We saw plenty. We're projecting a lot of points in the association. Something for me, Joe, leans towards the unders in both spots. I think it's going to be run game heavy where we really don't see that high-octane offense that we're expecting to see from a couple of these gun shooters. So what do you think, Joe? Are we seeing it eye to eye? Are you jumping in on Dubsy's holiday hamper parlay, if you will, for Wednesday?
I agree. I would even go. I like the unders in this spot as well with you here, Dubs. Especially the Steelers at home, 4-2 to the under. And we know Kansas City is not in a rush to run up and down the field on anybody. I think their games are only averaging around 42 points. So I do think the only thing I worry about is the short week. It usually affects the defenses more than the offenses. I do think maybe if you're looking to fade a team, maybe you should be looking to fade the team total of the Houston Texans. Because I do think they're going to be going through it. They're trying to get, and listen, as it is, they haven't been the most prolific offense this year. I think they're going to have problems against this much improved Ravens defense as well. I think 20.5 was the team total, Dubs. I mean, are they getting to 21 points here on this Ravens team? I don't know. CJ Stroud has become very predictable, and so has the Houston Texans team. So if they ain't scoring early, they ain't scoring late against Baltimore. So I would look to fade them and go under their team total.
Yeah, I can't see it. So we're in line on that one. And this is going to be the last segment for me, Joe. We got Tom Vecchio, who's going to join the program to close out the third and final hour here of the early line on the SportsGrid Network. But I need to get your thoughts. MVP market, Josh Allen, we've sung his praises all show, minus 450, very short price. Is there a world, is there a scenario in which Lamar Jackson could catch up in this award? We've just got 2 games to play. He sits at plus 380. What would Lamar have to do to close out the season and maybe overtake Josh Allen? Is it even possible, or is it already done and dusted?
I don't see how. I mean, they've been trying to give this award to Josh Allen for the last couple of years. They're just looking for an excuse to give it to him. And the numbers are certainly there. The team's success is there. The only wild card, and I don't think it's Lamar, I think the wild card here is Joe Burrow. Can Joe Burrow get Cincinnati to the playoffs here? Because his numbers, it's what now, Dub? 6 straight games with 3 touchdown passes or more? I mean, the guy has been absolutely unbelievable here. And he's got a small chance, but nonetheless, they're going to need some help. But if he finishes it out strong with another 3+ touchdown performance in back-to-back games here and finish the year, I think Burrow has got the shot, the outside chance, depending on how things fall. But I do think with the voters, it just feels like they've been trying to give Josh Allen this award, looking to give him this MVP award, and I think he's finally going to get it this year. It's probably already done.
Yeah, I think he's very close to having that thing locked up, and the odds reflective of that minus 450. But if you wanted to make the case for Joey Burrow, and you build a pretty strong argument, still sitting at 150 to 1 to take out the MVP for this season. But I think you'd have to correlate that with that little playoff dance and a playoff run. And Joe, with that, that's going to do it for me here on the Tuesday card. I've asked you what the drink choice is for Christmas Day. I've asked you what's going to be on the dinner table. What about sweets? You know your boy's got a sweet tooth. What are we packing?
Oh, it's all cannolis, man. Cannolis and tiramisu. It's the only way you can go. Just all homemade.
You absolute sicko. You absolute sicko.
Correct.
I love
Dip it in the bourbon. Dip it in the bourbon. Yeah.
Merry Christmas.
On, Donner and Blitzen. Now, Rudolph, now.
Merry Christmas to all!
How do you find some of this great talent that you've brought in, who are still early in their career, might not have a ton of tape on them yet?
I've been around this business, man, for almost 20 years. So a lot of these guys will tell you that I popped into a lot of gyms, sparred, or just worked on the side, or, kind of worked out, just watching. I've always loved this sport, man. I think it's the greatest. And we want to continue to put on the next up-and-coming superstars. We know we got them.
Only on SportsGrid.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. I'm ready. I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people.
You don't want them to go 13-0 and then lose the first round of the playoffs.
Red.
Yeah, this is their last shot. They don't really have anywhere else to go yet.
Hot take.
By the time I hit, I guess what, Route 33 up here, that ticket's cashing.
Only on SportsGrid. The holidays come with a touch of craziness, from unwrapping the latest storylines to the best betting insights. We've got everything you need to crank up the excitement this season. We can't promise there won't be a little yelling.
Play a decent schedule. They have maybe 500. There's none of us.
They just ruined my day.
But we can guarantee a whole lot of fun. Merry Christmas from all of us at SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back into the early line. I'm Joe Ranieri. Appreciate you stopping by as we T-minus 24 hours and counting here. Christmas Day will be upon us, and we'll have 5 NBA games, but more importantly, we'll have 2 NFL games, and we're going to do a deep dive into both of those games as we welcome in our good friend Tom Vecchio here on the early line. And Tom, I listened, the scheduling has been interesting by the NFL and deciding to just bury the Steelers and the Kansas City Chiefs in 3 games in 10 days. My goodness. This is an interesting early game. I think Kansas City's win last week, and Mahomes didn't seem to have any injury, but I think Kansas City's win last week pretty much wraps up the 1 seed in the AFC. I don't think it mattered whether Kansas City had it or not. I don't think they're at that point with this team. But likely they're going to get it. But this is a big ask for both these teams. Steelers heading one way, feels like the Chiefs heading the other. We're talking about a field goal or less here. Tomlin as a home dog has been profitable over the years. Who wins this game?
I honestly think the Steelers come away with it, but it's going to be super close. Like, I can't fault people for wanting to take the Chiefs at -2.5, which is, the argument people have always made, like, oh, they're not covering these numbers that are 6.5 or 7 or 10.5 when they're going up against the Panthers. But, they end up winning by a field goal. Surprise, surprise. And Butker is back, so they're that much better. I don't want to lay the -120 at 2.5. So I am on board with taking the Steelers. I also side with the under in this game. This is a super important game for a Steelers team that's kind of reeling at this point, like you said. And I don't know what you feel about the other game, which we can get into, but that's a very straightforward, winnable game for the Ravens. And if they win that and the Steelers lose this, the Steelers had control of the division all season, and now they've seen it slip away over the past few weeks. So I think this has to be a game where the Steelers look to control the ball and control the clock and just keep it out of Mahomes' hands as much as possible and hopefully lean towards the under. Like, that's how they win this game. I don't think putting the ball in Russell Wilson's hands 35 times is a path to them winning. They don't want to turn this into a barn burner back and forth.
Well, yeah, I mean, and to your point on the under here, it's not like this is the high-flying Kansas City Chiefs offense of years past here. I mean, their games are just averaging about 42 points here, and you can see the total at 44.5, 43.5. The only problem I have you seen this Pittsburgh defense over the last couple of weeks? They've been getting gashed, haven't they? And it's not Watt's playing. So, what's the deal with this secondary and Tomlin's defense here?
At a certain point, they were so good that they may be in for a little bit of regression. But at a certain point, we're also just dealing with that they were so good. Attrition is starting to hurt them, where they're just slowly taking steps back. It's not like a massive performance. Like you're saying, like week by week, they're getting just slightly worse. And, this is a point where I think Pacheco and Kareem Hunt could have a big game on the ground. As much as I think the Steelers need to play things into their hands and play like how they need to force the Chiefs to play their style. Pacheco and Hunt both having big games, I think, is on the table. And we're looking at a Kansas City team total at 23.5. No, we're getting Pacheco at plus 150 for a touchdown. So everyone is plus money in this game. So really expecting a solid amount of scoring. I like Pacheco. I also mind taking a shot on Hollywood Brown up at plus 330, like a quarter unit kind of play on that. He's back. He's healthy. Granted, he only played 27% of the snaps last week, but they want to get him back in the mix after, his first game last week. So I think this has to be a very straightforward game from both teams. Like you said, it's not necessarily a must win for the Chiefs, but this is a huge statement game for the Steelers if they're able to come away with the win.
How big does Pickens playing change change the way you look at this game? If he plays.
If he plays, correct. Their offense has been terrible over the past 2 weeks. Like, it's just completely different when they don't have that downfield threat. If they have that, I actually think it opens up a path for Najee Harris to have a big game because, we're looking at other games or the past few weeks where opponents can stack the box against the Steelers. There's no viable pass catching options. Like Pat Freiermuth, I think, is good, but who can getting the ball to? Van Jefferson, Calvin Austin, like Mike Williams, like these aren't consistent pass catching options. So if Pickens is out there and he has that deep ball threat, that moonshot that we know that Russell Wilson likes to give, I actually think it opens up a bit for Najee Harris to have a solid game.
So it's that's the 1 o'clock game, and again, big game for Pittsburgh at home as a dog. Baltimore handled their business against Pittsburgh last week. They got to take on, I don't know, a Houston Texans team. To me, it's just heading in the wrong direction. You're picking up Deontay Johnson off of waivers in desperation because you don't have anybody else. They can't figure it out in the second half. There's no adjustments. They're the worst second half team in the NFL. I don't see them playing from in front in this game, and that's the problem here. How do you see this?
I'm totally in agreement. From where their season started, the hype coming in off of Stroud's year last year, you bring in Diggs, like you think you have this high-flying offense ready to go. And we saw Joe Mixon start the year super strong. That has all changed. And their defense isn't consistent. Their offense can't move the ball. Their offensive line is terrible. Stroud is constantly under pressure. There's nothing that says to me, like you said, if they do not get out in front, they won't have the lead at any point, and the Ravens will win wire to wire. They will take care of business. Lamar, one passing, one rushing, a rushing touchdown from Derrick Henry. And at no point do I think the Texans will be live to win and probably not even cover. Like, I just don't think there's any path for them outside of a disaster game from Lamar with 2 pick sixes. I don't think there's a shot that the Texans win this game.
Yeah, I'm with you. And what people haven't noticed, Tom, is that since week 10, the Ravens haven't given up more than 315 yards in a game to any team. This defense has gotten better as the season has progressed. And I don't see Houston being the one that gets them to revert back to. I don't see a 400-yard performance here from this Houston offense. And if the game is out of hand, are the starters even playing? Are you risking any more injuries in the second half with Houston?
I mean, at that point, no. I mean, Nico Collins is great, but if he's not getting the ball, who do they have on offense besides Joe Mixon? They already won the division. They're making the playoffs. So like you said, you actually may want to reel things back on Joe Mixon as the game comes to a close.
Yeah, there's we'll talk a few more props in that game, maybe a couple of team totals as well. We'll touch base on the NBA as we look to close out the early line next year on the Grid.
There's a better chance the Raiders might stumble into a win because of who they're playing over the next few weeks than the Giants, who I don't think will win.
I don't believe for 1 minute that they want to win a game. I do not believe that the New York Football Giants want to win a game at all because it will cost them dearly. In fact, they will continue to suck for years to come if they screw this up.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circa Sports Million, Circa Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With 2 former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in here. The early line on the Sports Grid Network. Joe Ranieri alongside Tom Vecchio as we're getting you ready for Christmas Day football, the NFL. We're talking about the second game on the slate tomorrow, which happens to be a rematch, if you may recall, of the divisional round game last year where Houston barely got over 200 yards of offense. And we're certainly missing Tank Dell then and scored, I think a whopping 3 offensive points here. Baltimore's defense, we were just talking about this, Tom. They have this, everyone has this impression because of how the season started that they're a terrible defense. But yet since week 10, they haven't given up more than 315 yards in any game. The defense has gotten better. I don't see team total 20.5 for Houston. Are they getting 21 points in this game? Because I don't see it.
The only way I see it happening is if it's like a backdoor garbage time where the Ravens drop 35 points and maybe they pull some defensive starters. They've had their injuries on defense. And then we see a late touchdown that is absolutely meaningless. The Ravens still cover. That's the only spot that I see them getting to. And like you said, this defense has gotten better week in and week out for the Ravens. And outside of Nico Collins and Joe Mixon probably not moving the ball too much on the ground, I don't know where they're going to be getting the yards to put them in a spot. I will say the one prop that I do like from the Houston side of things is Joe Mixon over 19.5 receiving yards. When we're looking back at some of these recent game logs, only 14 last week, but 33, 18, 23, 44, and 44 from Mixon with how bad this Houston offensive line has been. Stroud is not going to have a ton of time. We saw it last week. He has to get out of the pocket quickly, so easy checkdowns to Joe Mixon will get him some yards, but they're not going to be sustaining drives.
I just can't see it. It's tough to do. I do, however, think and listen, Baltimore has averaged 34 points a game over the last couple of weeks. The number one offense. They have been money to the over, 12-3 on the season to the over. No matter what the other team does here, the total at 46.5. I can only look over because I think Baltimore is more than capable of dropping 30 points or more in this game. And I don't think Houston's going to contribute all that much, but they certainly can contribute enough to help this thing get up and over.
Right. What are we, like 31-17, 34-17? I think that's very reasonable. And like you said, we're right at the number. It pushes over maybe late. But again, as we said in the last segment, Ravens, they will be out in front. They should be, again, wire-to-wire victory for them. I think they cover. They, obviously they win. And what's the Ravens team total? What are we looking at? Probably 27.5, 28.5, whatever it is for them.
That's
I think
correct.
they do go
27.5,
27.5 to 4 touchdowns. Tucker, he's had his inconsistencies this year. Take it for what you will. They're going to be inside, no conditions. I think they go over the team total. I think they cover. Like this is let's stop talking about the Texans offense for what they were. This is as straightforward a game as you possibly can imagine for the Ravens, and they will know they have a shot at the division if the Steelers lose at 1 p.m.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot on the line here, and sometimes we want to overthink it, and let's not do it at this particular point. All right, NBA season starts tomorrow. We all know it. Nobody will admit it, but we all know the NBA season starts on Christmas. But having said that, some interesting matchups here tomorrow. I'm going to start with the late game because I can't trust the Phoenix Suns. I don't know what the hell that was last night. To have rest advantage going there, to have Denver on the second of a back-to-back in a rough game, all signs pointing towards Phoenix, and they look as dysfunctional as they can be. I usually like to go opposite, right? Hey, Denver won the game 24 hours ago. I'm going to look to fade Denver and back Phoenix. But I can't. I just can't at this point, Tom.
And they lost. Phoenix lost a couple days ago at home to Detroit. Durant's in and out of the lineup. And listen, obviously the talent is immense, and Booker could drop 40 points, but he could do so in a losing effort. So like you said, why would we have – there's nothing that they've done to prove to us that, we should have faith in them that they're going to be winning this game. So I'm on board with that. And I understand the concept. You said, Denver, they lost a back-to-back game, et cetera, et cetera. That's a spot that I always love to go to, but it's got to be Denver. And I will say quickly for the early game, early game real quick. I like Jalen Brunson going over his combined points plus assists. It's sitting at 31, going up against the Spurs. Not worried about the Spurs defense at all. Brunson in a bounce back game.
Love that. Tom Vecchio, always a pleasure, my man. We'll see you again this week. Have a great holiday. And you do as well. Merry Christmas from all of us here on the Early Line. We'll see you again on Thursday on the Grid. Happy holidays.